So new construction, what we're going to do is talk about what to expect when you're representing a client in a new construction class. If you want to hit the next slide. The purpose of this is to teach a proactive and focused approach for helping buyers find and purchase a new construction home. Just so that you understand what we're going to do, I'm going to set the table for you first. The way that this process, just mute. Okay. What we're going to have to do, because we're getting reverb as I'll walk in the other room. So sorry about that. What we're going to do today is I'm going to go over the basics of buyer representation in a new construction situation. And then Sherry, as a site agent, is going to sit down and walk you through the process of how to behave on site, contracts, the different things that you need to negotiate, how you coach your client through the process, because it's a different process. So if you want to hit the next slide, mindset is key to everything that we do. And those of you that don't have the paper in front of you, I'm going to read this to you, and I apologize for reading it to you. And those that are in class in person, please follow along. So, as an agent with Harry Norman Realtors, you are a member of an elite real estate company with over 90 years of history in the metro Atlanta area, the original residential real estate firm. We have a reputation for being the most professional and well-trained real estate agents in our state of Georgia. However, we can't run technology very well this morning. Just kidding. The purpose of this course is to help you discover which techniques help in negotiations and which don't. We are going to go over the GAR form in this class. We're not going to go over the GAR form in this class, but what I would suggest, because every builder has a different contract, they all write their own, they have their own attorneys, and they're very much heavily weighted toward protecting the builder. But those of you that are not familiar with new construction, at least a good place to start is the new construction GAR form, just to see some of the key pieces that will show up. Know that that is not in any way the animal that you're going to be dealing with. You'll have a different contract on every construction site you go to. So we're going to talk about specific techniques and principles that'll be of assistance in delivering the highest level of customer service. There are many decisions that you're going to make every day to run this business of yours. And this course is going to provide basic information to help you. But note, this course and the materials are designed as a resource and a reference. The suggestions that we make are not in any way mandatory. So please consult with your broker or a member of the H&R leadership team if you have further questions beyond today. So let's dig into the mindset. It begins with the way you think. You can transcend any situation, not that slide, but I'll keep talking. So thoughts rule the world for the simple reason that thoughts determine the feelings and actions. You can think yourself into happiness or depression, health or illness, peace of mind or raging fury. You can think yourselves into a narrow, limited world characterized by procrastination and paralysis. We have all done that, especially when we don't know what we're doing. When you're stepping into an arena like new construction, that's different every time. Like I said, every site you walk on. Or you can think yourselves into a noble, creative life and the actions that give shape and substance. If you take care of your thoughts, your feelings and actions will take care of themselves. So by your thinking, you're going to create an individual and collective experience of the reality that you have in dealing with buyers, in dealing with new construction. So I know all of you that are ninjas understand mindset. Those of you that are not ninjas may or may not understand what I'm saying. But basically, you've got to get your head in your game. And by getting your head in the game, that means being prepared. So first things first, stay on this slide. To get prepared to represent a buyer in new construction, it is key that you know your market. So the challenge to everyone that's on this call or sitting in this class today is to go and see every new construction that is in your immediate market area. And what you want to do is talk to the site agents, get to know them, ask good questions. You'll understand towards the end why that's a key thing. And you want to take away their package, whatever package that they have. And you need to be the expert when you get in front of a buyer about the new construction that's out there. This is key if you're a seasoned agent or you're a new agent, but very important if you're a new agent, because if you know more than the average bear just in your conversations, it is very rare that a client is then going to say, oh, how many new construction homes have you sold? Or how long have you been in the business? If you come armed with the information and you already appear to be the expert, you're well ahead of the game. So please, please, please take the time, identify one a week or maybe two a week, and pop by those new construction sites, give the site agent your card, take a look at the inventory, and be prepared to represent a buyer, because we are seeing as brokers, a little over 50% of the contracts that I'm reviewing lately are all new construction. So know that that is going to be a key point of your buyer presentation and your buyer capture. So on to the next slide. There are 47 vital buyer activities. These are the particular categories that you walk through. The 47 activities come underneath each one of these. I'm going to briefly just touch on a few. So the first thing that you do, you have to convert your lead to a client. That is your buyer presentation. That's when you're going to talk about your role, your contracts, their wants and needs, all of those things, and come up with a criteria sheet that you use, whether you use the Ninja one or there is one in the cloud that Tori can give us the link to. You want to convert that client into, or convert that lead into a client. So the ultimate goal of that is to get the buyer brokerage signed and then start working with them. That's when you have your administrative prep time, when you're going to go and put your contracts in, you're going to start working with them. You're going to schedule your showings, which is the next section. You're going to write, negotiate an offer. Then you're going to prepare for the closing. And then there's always post-closing activities. And if you do them well, those lead to more referrals and repeat business. So that's the structure. So today we're going to talk a little bit quickly about converting the lead to a client and how that might change and how that might work. And we're also, then I'm going to turn it over to Sherry, and she's going to talk about the showings, how you behave on a site, the writing and negotiating, which there's not a whole heck of a lot in new construction these days. Used to be. So we're going to talk about that, but and give you all of the information, but be aware that there's very little negotiating going on now. We've even seen it where you write a contract and the builder reserves the right to terminate that, or has an escalation clause. If lumber prices go up or whatever might happen, they can change the sales price on you. So you need to be aware of these things and present them in a buyer presentation format and touch on new construction. Don't wait until it smacks you in the face after they're already under contract, because it will be your fault. So the goal to this is to prevent some of those things. Then we're going to talk, Sherry's going to talk about closing and how you move up to the closing and the inspections and what you need to do. And then post-closing activities, entirely different in regular residential resale from new construction, because you're going to be dealing with a warranty process and specific vendors that they need to call. And it's different for every builder, and Sherry's going to go through that. Then we're going to touch on a few actual real life examples of what goes on. So to dig into the next slide, let's talk about the buyer conversion or the buyer presentation process. Goal is to build rapport. You're going to set the tone and the framework of the transaction. Think about it this way. When you go to the doctor and you're about to have surgery, they start at the top and walk you through every single thing that you're going to do. They talk about when you get to the hospital and you're going to drive up to a certain parking area and you're going to get out and you're going to walk in and you're going to register. And then they're going to take you back and you're going to be changing your clothes. And then you're going to be talking to the anesthesiologist. Then you're going to be, they're going to put in an IV drip. They walk you through everything so much as to actually draw on your body as to what they're going to cut. So that is the thing that you need to keep in your mind, that you need to set that expectation with every single buyer. It's a key point to having a successful transaction, to developing rapport and loyalty between you and your client. And understand that when you go into new construction, you add a whole heck of a lot more people to that list that you have to then interact with. And there are very specific rules, because Sherry's going to tell you later, you can get thrown off of a site and banned from ever coming on that builder site again. How do you represent your client in that respect? So it's key that you set this tenet and this example with your buyer first. That way, anything that does happen hopefully can be mitigated by saying, hey, you remember in the very beginning, I sort of mentioned this might happen. And that way you're covered and you maintain that relationship and loyalty instead of the cheese slide and slap off the cracker and into the floor. And then your client's mad at you and then you never want to talk to them again and you're struggling for a commission. And then the builder cancels the contract and ups the price. That's not what we want to happen. So you're going to set the tone and the framework. You're going to verify their motivation. You're going to find out how motivated are they to sell. Right now in this marketplace, a lot of people are fearful because they're worried they're not going to find another home and be homeless. So that's something that that's a whole different class. But we're going to talk a little bit about verifying their motivations, verify their financial availability. Yeah, can they actually buy it? And then agree to the roles and expectations, which we're going to talk specifically about, and then ultimately get that brokerage engagement signed. So there's two pieces that you're going to have. There's a criteria sheet. And I know Tori has one in my H&R office. And those of you that are Ninja, there is a buyer criteria page through Ninja as well. You may already have your own. Use whatever is most comfortable and works for you. Just be certain that you have something that you can reduce to writing in the buyer presentation process. That way, when they start going sideways on you or changing the criteria, you can refer back to what I call that dream home worksheet and say, hey, do we need to adjust this? Because they need to understand that there is a process to this. And they need to understand that you're a professional and you don't just go out willy-nilly and start shooting at the sky and hopefully find them a house. We say this all the time, that agents aim at things that the clients are not even looking for based on what they think they need. So please use a criteria sheet and hold them to it and ask to renegotiate if they start asking for houses without a basement when they told you that was one of their number one priorities. So we'll talk about that. You want to go back on to the next page. The next page, this is a key piece here. This is where things will go sideways. And this is the part of the buyer presentation. As you can see, we're not going through the whole thing. We're just hitting the points and the topics that are going to be new construction specific. Boy, my tongue's getting ahead of me today. So what we have is this particular form, and it's called My Role and Your Role. And I've broken it into two so we can discuss it quickly separately. But what it is, you're going to sit there after you've talked to your person, your client, and you've decided what they need. You know that they're probably going to end up looking at new construction at some point in time. And you want to set the expectation as to how you're going to behave and deliver service and how they are. Now, it's part of the buyer brokerage engagement. It's also part of our realtor code of ethics as to how we behave. But rather than take those forms and those papers and beat them upside the head with it, pull it out and have a separate piece of paper where you sit and talk to them. And that's the time that you're going to talk about how when you go on a new construction site, it is absolutely imperative that you follow the rules of that site. And they're all different. Sherry's going to tell you about this. Some of them will be given to you verbally, and some will be given to you verbally and also be a part of the contract that you have to sign off on. And we're going to dig into those details too. But this is where you set the stage, and this is where you help your buyer understand that some builders love you to come by anytime. Stop into the site agent's office first, get a hard hat, do your thing. Some never want you on the site at all without a prior appointment scheduled. And then there's specific people that you need to talk to as well. These are the things that you need to articulate in that buyer presentation and say, when we find new construction and we decide that that's the way we're going to go, we're going to revisit these rules and how it works, because it's very important to making this transaction work. So let's look briefly at my role. And you can change this. We'll send it to you so you can say what you can expect from Tori Hughes as your buyer's consultant. So when you work with me, I'm going to treat all parties fairly and honestly, ensure we keep a collaborative relationship. I'm going to respect your time, needs, and finances. May not be able to run a PowerPoint presentation, but I'm going to respect your time, needs, and finances. I'm going to be on time for all meetings, communicate with you openly and frequently, represent your best interest in all negotiations, develop and implement a complete negotiation strategy, consult with you throughout the process, and help you reach an informed decision based on your needs and priorities. Provide a comprehensive showing package and recommend best strategies. Schedule all your home showings. That means, guess what? You don't run off without me. I'm going to show you only the homes that meet your criteria. I'm going to assist with the scheduling of inspections, closing, and document review prior to anything you need to sign. And if it's new construction, participate in all meetings and help navigate builder contracts and site rules. That's where you're going to stop, and you are going to tell them all the stories that we're going to give you today and express upon them the importance of how to behave and that it's a different animal. They may have bought and sold 3, 4, 5 properties in their lifetime. If they've never done new construction, you are going to have to hold their hand and be there with them. That's why we're telling you, you need to visit these sites ahead of time. You need to know the site agents. They need to be comfortable with you and vice versa. And you need to be the expert. So take the time, please, to go out to these places. Y'all can all do it as a group. If you're in certain offices and you want to go visit the new construction, and also lean into your broker. Perhaps your broker can reach out to some of the subdivisions. They're open now and they're willing to host little get-togethers or breakfast meetings and let you tour the inventory and grab packages and go that way. So, number 14, respond to and help resolve issues quickly and timely. And I'm going to provide you with post-closing information and consulting services. Now, Tori, as my buyer, in that process, after the closing, you are not going to be dealing with a home seller that you purchased from, where you would normally call me and I would call the listing agent. And if there's something that survived the closing, if there's a problem with something that was warranted to be accurate and correct and fixed, the normal process is call me, I call the other agent, the agent calls the old seller, and we negotiate and work our way through it. Now, Tori, as my buyer, because we're probably more than likely going to end up in new construction for you, like we've already talked about, that process is going to be entirely different. And it's going to be different for any builder, depending on the 3 that are building in this area that you choose to go under contract with. So there's going to be a builder warranty on your property, and the site agent is going to go over that in detail with you. And sometimes you may have one single warranty person that you call. And then sometimes you're going to have a list of vendors that you call, say it's plumbing or HVAC. And you're also going to have, your walkthroughs and your 11-month walkthrough and different things. So we're going to go over all of that stuff depending on which builder you pick to build your dream home. So the process is a little bit different. Just want to let you know that I'm still going to be with you after the closing. You're welcome to call me anytime and I will be more than happy to help you. So that's me talking to Tori as if she was a buyer. That's another thing that you need to understand that's going to be different in this process. And it can be somewhat sticky and tenuous. And we're going to go over some of those things with Sherry. So the next slide, and here's the thing that you need to reiterate with them. This is your buyer's role. So this is what Jill Triola expects from you. All of these things here, you can read yourself. Number 5, they must respond to calls from mortgage, closing attorney, inspectors, builder representatives, and other ancillary companies involved in the process. They must respond to those calls, and they're going to get a lot of them. And we need to set that expectation because they can get 4 or 5 phone calls a day. And there's a lot of things that have to happen quickly when you're doing new construction. So they need to be responsive to all of those. I know all of you will like number 7. We do ask for loyalty from our buyers. Number 8, respect the seller's property. Number 9, here's your key, which follows with 8. Follow all new construction and builder site rules if applicable. So once again, Tori, as a buyer, it's my job to help you navigate that site and be certain that we're following all the builder's rules, because the last thing that we ever want to do is to tick off someone that we're in negotiations with and then end up losing a contract, because that is possible. A lot of these builders' contracts have escalation clauses, or the builder reserves the right to terminate the contract because of price increases. And so we have to play nice all the way through this process. And unfortunately, there's just not a lot of negotiation that goes on now. So I don't want to, once you've picked your house and we've picked your design colors, if that's an option, and we're moving forward, to in any way mess this deal up so we lose it and have to start all over. So please understand that there will be builder rules for every site, and I'm going to help you navigate those. So, and lastly, have fun and enjoy the process. That is a 1-page form. It sets your role and their role, And it's divided into two in this presentation, but I can get Tori the form so she can share it with you. Next slide. And I'm going to turn this over to Sherry. This right here is part of the art of negotiation class that I teach. The definition of negotiation, and this is what you have to remember. It is a collaborative conversation. It is not adversarial. You do not need to have them a line in the sand and throw the builder, the site agent, everybody across there and fight and feel like you've got to dig in to get things that your buyer actually needs. There's not going to be a lot of that, and you'll end up turning the people off that are on the other side of the table. Now, that's not to say that every site agent is as good of a site agent as Sherry Reimer was when she sat in new construction, or myself. There are some people that are going to come at you and be adversarial. Still, no matter what, hold to the point that it is a collaborative conversation with everybody that's there, because you want to uncover those needs and desires of all parties, because the builder has their own piece in it. The project manager has their own piece in it. The site agent has their own piece in it. Even after the closing, the warranty guy that's coming out to fix these things have their own piece in it. And it's important to have conversations and talk to people and ask ahead of time before you ever show up at the site, what's the common procedure? Are they giving any concessions? Is there anything that we can change or ask for? Is there any, this walking on, so that way you can set a good expectation for your buyer. So remember that in this negotiation, new construction, you're not going to be able to get a whole heck of a lot done because there's not any inventory and it's going to get tighter. So it must be collaborative between you, the site agent, and every builder rep. It must be a conversation, and all the parties have needs and desires. So if you are patient and ask good questions, you may find a thread that you can pull that would be advantageous to your buyer, but not always. But you won't know unless you're having a conversation and asking questions. So just quickly, if you can monitor the chat, Tori, I want to ask everybody, how many people do you think you need to negotiate with in a home transaction? Regular residential. Let's just count them. You've got the other agent, you've got your party, you've got, which would be a buyer or a seller. You have an inspector, you have a loan officer. Your buyers and sellers may have partners. You're going to have an appraisal. You're going to have vendors that you're going to have to negotiate with if there are any repairs that have to be done. You may have Uncle, Cousin Joe, Billy Bob that's given them the down payment that you're going to have to negotiate with. There's all these things. So immediately you can see you have about 8 people that you're going to have collaborative conversations with to uncover any kind of black swan moment, anything that would be advantageous to your buyer. So remember, it's that collaborative effort. Well, that's regular residential. When you walk into new construction, you multiply the number of people that negotiate and have their hands in a transaction tenfold. And you need to know who's who on the site. You need to know the process and the protocols and what to go through, and always keep it collaborative and always keep it to a conversation. You do not, it would be so embarrassing to get yourself thrown off a site and you can never go back to that site and you have a buyer buying, and then you have to call us, your broker, and we have to step in and go to the site for you. So anyway, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Sherry so that she can talk to you about the process once you get to the site. So I'm turning it over to Sherry.
Hey, everybody. I hope you're having fun and learning some stuff from us. We enjoy the new construction process, and I hope you do too. And I'm happy to pass along the knowledge that I have. So Tori, my slide, I'm assuming my slides are up. So the first slide is just the new construction. It's just kind of my main page, but we'll get to the second page where it talks about mindset again. And what I want to stress the most, when you walk into a new construction sales center and you're ready with your client to write that offer, don't look at it at the process as us versus them. It is a partnership. You're going to work together with the on-site sales agent, the project manager, and everybody in between. It is a huge process. It's a huge partnership, and they really know what they're doing. As an agent, I would ask that you rely on your on-site salesperson for their information. They know their builder more than anybody else. They're going to be able to tell you what that builder is or is not willing to do for your client. You can still push a little bit, and I would suggest that you always go to bat for your clients, but listen to them. If they say, absolutely not, the builder is not going to do this, the builder is probably absolutely not going to do it. And no matter how many times you ask, you're probably going to get the same answer. So just rely on the team. And I'll give you a little tip. Builders, project managers, they love food. So if you're going to stop by the sales center, take them some donuts, take them some cookies. They're going to appreciate you so much and remember you. And they're going to go, Susie brought me some cookies last week and she's asking for something this week. I think I might do it for her. And if you don't think it happens, it does every single day. So just keep that in mind. Just a little tip there to bribe your project managers just a little bit. So Tori, we can go to the next screen. And this is going to talk about, there's several things, and Tori, I've got it done in bullet points, and as you click, they'll come up. But what you should know as an agent, what you as an agent should know about the builder community before your client engages in writing a new construction purchase and sale agreement. And the first bullet point is, does the builder have their own contract or do they use a GAR contract? That's extremely important for you to know, because if they're using their own contract, if they're agreeable ahead of time to give you a copy so that you can read it, I would suggest that you do that, because there's a lot of information in that purchase and sale agreement that is not in the GAR contract. And guys, that the builder contract, it is written for the buyer. Make no mistake. It is covering him or her in every facet of the building process. So I would make sure if you're able to get a copy of that contract that you do. Sometimes they won't give it to you. And if that's the case, ask if you can come into the sales center and sit down and just read it from their computer. Sometimes they'll do that for you. A couple of the builders that I worked for would not give out the purchase and sale agreement prior to writing the contract. They wanted to do it all in the sales center. So just know that information. The second bullet point is, how financially stable is the builder? Who is the owner of the company? And you're asking, why is that important? Well, as we all know, during the recession, a lot of the builders were taking deposit monies, and then they filed bankruptcy, and then our buyers were not getting their money back. So know how financially stable are they. Your bigger companies, they're probably going to have investment groups behind them. So they're going to have the money to support any kind of hiccup in the market that they may experience. The smaller builders, not so much. So just know how financially sound that builder is. And then know who owns that particular builder. Let's take, for instance, John Whelan Homes and Neighborhoods. Back in 2012, John Whelan himself, who owned John Whelan Homes and Neighborhoods, sold to an investment group. So it still had John's name, but it was no longer owned by John. And then in 2017, the Pulte Group bought out John Whelan Homes and Neighborhoods. So right now, if you go into a neighborhood that has the sign John Whelan Homes and Neighborhoods, it's really a Pulte product with John Whelan Homes and Neighborhoods name on the sign. So I think that would probably be very important to a buyer and something that you would want to know. John Whelan still builds, but he builds under the tag of JW Collection. So he's well into his 80s right now. I've had the pleasure of sitting at the same table with him. He's a very sharp man. He was an icon in our industry. So it was really fun to sit there and listen to him. But just know behind the scenes who owns who, because you need to know, your buyer's going to want to know if they think they're buying a John Whelan home, but then they find out they're really buying a Pulte home. That might make a big difference to them. The next bullet point is, will the builder make structural changes to the house? Or are there structural options? This is a big contention with a lot of buyers these days. Back before the recession, if you had the money, the builders would make the change and they would do whatever you want them to do. In today's world, that is not the case. When you walk into a neighborhood and, you like a floor plan, but you go, I would really like to change this wall, make this different, can we scoot this out, make it smaller, bigger? They're just not willing to do it. They lost a lot of money doing that before the recession, and they will sit down and they'll tell you, they just did whatever the buyer wanted. They put a price tag on it. It may have been enough money to cover the change, or it may not have. So they really went to more of a production style of building. Not all builders, but the majority of what you're seeing in our market. So just know what they are willing and not willing to do, and prepare your client for that change, for that mindset that, hey, if I want this done, can I have it done? So as their agent, find out ahead of time, what is the builder willing to do? Do they have structural options that they are willing to do? Are they willing to add on a sunroom, a screened-in porch, a storage building onto the house? Some builders would do that, but just know what the builder is willing to do before you sit down at the process. I promise you, it will make it so much smoother for your buyer to know ahead of time what their options are. The next bullet point is standard features in the community. Know that it's so important. Is hardwood standard in the family room? Are quartz countertops standard? You need to know that, because your buyer is going to be calculating, well, if that's what I really have to have, and it's not standard, it's going to cost me extra money. So know what the features are before you go in and to write the contract. What is the estimated time for building? In today's world, it could be as much as 15 months. In a normal market, your builder is going to probably take 6 to 8 months to complete the house. And there's a lot of things that have to happen before the construction can get started. And there's a lot of in between. And the next bullet point is, what's the builder's process for building a house? So kind of tags in and goes hand in hand with the other one. What's the estimated time for building? Some builders won't start building until your client has gone to the design center and picked all of the upgrades or any changes they're going to make. And we call that, instead of custom options, they're going to refer to that as personalizing the home. They don't want to use the word custom any longer. So get familiar with personalizing the home. So just know that that's what they're going to do. And so if they're not going to start production and building until your buyer has gone all the way through the design process, that could be a couple of months. So while that's going on, they're busy getting permits and getting the site ready. So just know there's a process, but just know what that process is. The more you know, the better you can advise your clients, and the better they look to you and go, oh my gosh, my agent, she or he just knows it all. They have the answers that I'm looking for, and it's really good for you and your client. The next one, and this is a big one, I think, because I think it's important for buyers to know what to expect going in. What is the average a homeowner spends on upgrades at the design center? Some people are going to spend $20,000. Some people are going to spend $120,000, but know what the average is. And you can even go deeper with the on-site agent and say, okay, on the average of the upgrades, what are the things that people are most of the time adding to their house? So that you can talk to your buyers about that as well. It's just really, really important. And then the HOA, what is covered, what's not covered, what are the monthly fees? Prepare, and take, for instance, the neighborhood that I live in. My capital contribution fee, or every resident in my neighborhood, was $2,500. Some people freak out when they know that amount. They're like, why do I have to pay that? But, they need to be prepared that that's something that is going to be showing up on their closing statement. So just prepare that. And then why should you know this information? Because you want to be the trusted advisor for your clients. That's a ninja term that we use all the time, but you want to be that trusted advisor. Your clients are going to look to you to know the answers. So you should know the answers. That's really important when you're representing a buyer in a new construction transaction. So the next slide.
Sherry, you have a question in the chat on recommendations for how to find out the financial stability of a builder, or any warning signs to look for.
Google. Google is your friend. So Google the builder. It will show everything that you need to know. If the builder has been bought. The Toll Brothers has come in recently to our market and bought up a few builders. I think they bought Sharp Properties. So you'll know that information by Googling, look at the builder's website and it usually has our story. So look and see if they've recently been bought. If they've been bought and they've got investors behind them, they're pretty stable. Your smaller builders, if they're asking you to go get the construction loan, I would run. That means they don't have any money at all. So I would run from that. But you want to make sure that they have the funds to do that with. And if you're using a smaller builder, I would not even hesitate to ask, how financially sound are you? After the recession, people would walk into my sales center and say, I want to know if the builder can protect me if there's another hiccup. If the recession before, during the recession, a lot of when the builders went under, warranty work wasn't getting done by a lot of builders. And so ask those questions. It is your right and your buyer's right to know that answer to that question. So I hope that helps. Okay, next slide. Custom builder versus a production builder. You also need to know this before you get to the neighborhood. As we talked about, a custom builder is going to make any change you want to make in the neighborhood. A production builder is not going to. The difference, it's going to be mostly in your price points. I would say a production builder is going to be that 300 to 700 price point. And some production builders I've seen go even higher than that. Once you get above $700,000, you're really going to hit the more custom builders that are willing to do what your clients want them to do. So just know the difference between what they're offering and what your client wants. That's going to help you to go to the right neighborhood. So I hope you'll do that because know what your buyers are looking for, and then you will know what builder to help them find and do the transaction with. All right, now let's get into negotiating the purchase and sell agreement. And remember, guys, this should be a really fun time for your clients. Buying new construction is and should be fun. It's exciting. It's new. They're really putting their personal stamp on this house. So go into it with that kind of, mindset that, we're going to have fun with this. Make it fun for your client. So the next slide, let's get started. A builder's main objective is to keep the house priced just as high as he can possibly keep it. He doesn't want, if he's got a base price and then you've got options, structural options that you can add, he doesn't really want to negotiate on those numbers. So keep that in mind too. The new communities, the goal of the builder when starting a community, they're going to start at a much, much lower price point. And then they're going to slightly increase their prices, $5,000 to $10,000 every so often, either by as material cost increase, or some builders will say, the first 4 houses, I'm going to sell at $500,000 on these lots. The next 4 buyers, your price is going to be $510,000 for the same house, same kind of lot. So the best time to get in is at the beginning. You're going to get the very, very best price. And then the other times to buy new construction and to get the best prices is when it's, like I said, the community first opens, when it's a closeout community, the end of the month, and the end of the builder's fiscal year. So let's talk about when it's the end of the month. The builders have, or the sales agents, the on-site sales agents, they have a goal they have to hit every month on their sales. They're graded on this and they have to hit it. The builder is graded by his investors. If the builder tells the investor, I'm going to sell 200 houses this month, and they come in at 180, the investor wants to know why. And when the investor wants to know why, the builder's then going to look at you and go, or their on-site agents and go, why didn't you sell? So the best time to go in, I wouldn't go in the last day of the month, but let's say the last 3 to 4 days of the month is when you want to go in and, negotiate like a pro, because that's when they're willing to really negotiate with your client. And then the end of the fiscal year, again, they've got to answer to their investors. So they have to make a quota for the year. And if they're not, they will make sure that they hit it. I have been on the phone at midnight on the last day of my builder's fiscal year, negotiating contracts because we had to get that last transaction done to try to hit our quota. Now this was in a normal market. There's not a whole lot of negotiation going on in the current market, but you know, in a typical market, that's what you're going to find the best times to buy new construction. Next slide. My buyer is looking for a deal. What can he or she expect? In our current market, not much. The builder may pay a little bit of closing costs for your buyer, and that's only going to be if they use the builder's lender. Otherwise, from talking to my connections, they are not giving even a dime on any kind of incentive, no design options, just not much of anything. In a normal market, a builder's going to rather give incentives or include certain items in the purchase rather than decrease the price. Examples of incentives are going to be an fence, a design allowance or design features, pay additional closing costs, increase the size of a patio or a driveway, or sometimes all of the above. It just depends on what the builder is looking to do at that time. Keep in mind that the purchase price and the builder's margin is what is most important to the builder. So you don't know, like if you're looking at comps in a neighborhood, trying to decide, you know, well, this is the same floor plan and they closed it at $650,000. So my buyer should get $650,000 as well. You don't know what all was negotiated in that price. So I don't think you can always, you know, compare apples to apples when you're looking at comps in new construction, because there's so much more that's involved in that number than just that number. The next slide, you know, we touched on it a little bit, closing costs. The builders will have a preferred lender and they will typically only pay closing costs if your buyer uses the preferred lender. Why, you might ask? You know, why is that so important? And the reason is the lender is also contributing to those closing costs. So let's talk about the Providence Group. Typically, they will offer $5,000 in closing costs if you use their preferred lender, which was Fidelity Bank. I don't know if it still is, but it was. But in reality, the Providence Group was paying $2,500 and the lender was paying $2,500. And they're going to entice your buyers with, don't you want free money? Why would you not want to use our lender? We're going to give you $5,000 in closing costs. Folks, nothing's free. Not ever. Somewhere, someplace, your buyer is paying for that $5,000. Typically, it's going to be in a higher interest rate, and the builder is going to increase his price or not give you as much of an incentive on the some other aspect of the purchase. But just know that it is not free. And I would really encourage you to reach out to Prosperity if you are working new construction, because they can most likely beat the interest rate, and they can also perhaps contribute some closing costs to that.
Just want to make a quick ad for those of you that are not with us locally. We do have a local Providence Group brochure that's building in our area, and we're passing it around. And exactly what Sherry is saying is true. They have in their incentives for the closing costs. So a key thing, like we talked about presentation, being prepared ahead of the presentation, Sherry's dead spot on. Get those packages, tour the communities, bring them back, make an appointment with your Prosperity rep that's in your office and go over what's being offered. So that way you can speak educatedly and say, hey, believe in competition. Let's sit down in front of the Prosperity person now that you've picked your builder and let's see what they can do. So it's going around the room. I just want to let you guys know that are virtual that we do have those packages and they're available for you if you go grab them from all the builders. Hit it, Sherry.
Thanks. So when they're talking about free money, is that the best value for your buyer? Maybe, maybe not. So dig a little, engage with Prosperity, see what they can do for your buyer. I have seen, we had an example where the builder was agreeing to pay $14,000 of a buyer's closing cost, but they were charging them like 4.25% interest rate. We switched it over to Prosperity. They got them down to, I think, 3.25% interest rate and used that builder's money to buy down rates and do other things for them, pay their closing costs. The builder didn't put in his contract that they had to use a specific lender. I bet the builder's contract changed, But we got them over with Prosperity, got them, when my agent brought it to me and said, hey, they're charging 4 and something percent. I'm like, that's insane. Let's go talk to Brian. So we talked to Brian, our Prosperity rep, whole different ballgame. And for a first time home buyer, that interest rate is a big deal because it makes a big impact on their payments. So just don't take the builder's word for it, is what I'm saying. Investigate, talk with Prosperity and see if they can do better for your client, because guaranteed, not guaranteed, but my bet is they can.
Sherry, before you move on to the closing attorney, in the chat, there was a question that Prosperity has told someone they don't do construction loans. And I think maybe we need to clarify the difference between a construction loan and what you're talking about for the new construction purchase.
Perfect. So a new construction loan is very different than going and buying new construction. New construction is when, a new construction loan, and Prosperity does not do those, but they will loan money on a new construction transaction with a builder that has got their own financing. A new construction loan is when the builder has to go out and get financing on every single house that they're building from the bank. So it's a little bit different. So if you're building with the Providence Group or John Wheeland or Empire, they have their own financing, or the builders have access to capital money where they can build their houses. They don't rely on the buyer to go out and get their own financing. So a new construction loan, I think what they're referring to is when you're going out and getting your own financing for the builder then to turn around and build your house. So it's a very different process. So just make sure, the smaller builders are going to ask you to go get a new construction loan. That's not what Prosperity does. There's very few banks that do it, but there are some out there. But with the bigger builders, they have their own backing, their own finances, and they can build your house. And then you can get your financing on the house for your buyer from any bank or lender they want to use.
And that would just be a traditional conventional loan, jumbo loan, depending on the purchase price.
Right, VA, whatever they're doing, that would just be your traditional loans. Yes.
And then we can address this towards the end. There's been a couple of questions about how do you find new construction neighborhoods? So, and you may address this at another point in the conversation. I just want to put that on your radar. There's been a couple of questions in the chat.
So there's a couple different ways. What I've done for my office is I have created a new construction guide for, and it's got all the new construction neighborhoods that are available in Forsyth, Cherokee, and Alpharetta. So it's a guide that the brokers can pull from. We have a program called Metro Study, and it's and we're getting a class on that, I think, either earlier this week or later this week or earlier next week. Early next week. So is all the brokers are going to have access to this. It's a real simple process, and they can pull out all of the new construction neighborhoods, put together a list for you and send it out. It's needed right now. And I think it'll be very helpful for you guys once it's all put together in all the offices.
I have one more to say.
I did not interrupt you.
Well, I'm answering the question. There's also a piece that is consumer facing, but the agents can use it as well. And it is not it's not the real estate firm Atlanta Communities, but it is a magazine called Atlanta Communities, and you can Google it. I'll send Tori the link so she can forward it out to everybody. But it is metro wide, so it has everybody divided by county and the builders that are in there. Know that their inventory is not going to be accurate because it's pretty much sold, but that would give you an idea of kind of where to start and let you familiarize yourself with some of the builders. So that's called Atlanta Communities Magazine. Has nothing to do with Atlanta Communities, the real estate company. And your broker can find those and actually get some hard copies in your office to share with buyers. It's outdated, but at least gives them the places that they can go.
Yeah, I will give you the heads up. I don't use it because it's very outdated, but it is an option if you want to, give it a try to see what it might come up with. Any other questions, Tori, before we move on?
No, we're good.
Okay, moving on. Closing attorney. I know that we want you guys to use Campbell and Brannon on every single transaction. this is a sticking point for the builder. They're not gonna let you do it. They have a process. They don't go to the closing table. Their closing attorney does a mail away for them, and lets them sign off site. So they are not typically gonna let you use any, closing attorney that you choose. So just, I would not pick that as a battle that you want to go into. Well, however, we want you to use Campbell and Brannon, and if the builder will let you, by all means. But I wouldn't get caught up on it if the builder says no. All right, let's go into the purchase and sale agreement. Typically, there's going to be a lot of different things in that purchase and sale agreement that you need to know about. And I've picked out 10 that I think are important. So let's just get started. Number one, that purchase and sale agreement is written for the builder. Read it carefully, know exactly what it says. There's a lot of different information. Let's talk about earnest money versus builder deposit. You're usually going to see in a builder's purchase and sale agreement that the deposit is going to be a builder deposit, not earnest money. And the difference is a builder deposit goes straight into the general operating account of that builder. It is not held in escrow. It is not held in a safe place. So if the transaction does go sour, or the builder does go sour, that money's lost typically because it's in a general operating fund and not in an escrow fund. Due diligence period. There's not one. In new construction, I think the guard contract may have it, but in the builder's new construction contracts, there is not a due diligence. So if you go into the transaction going, oh, we have 10 days to decide if we really want to move forward, that is not the case. Unless the builder allows you to write a special step that you can put some due diligence in, but their mindset is, what are you due diligencing on? There's no house. You can't do an inspection. We don't want you to back out. When you write that contract, we want to know you're as committed as we're committed. So just know that there is not typically a due diligence timeframe in that contract. Next page. Closing date is not set in stone. If they write August of 2021, that's not a good date. Most builders I know right now are not even putting a month or a year in the contracts because they're so far behind. The building materials are behind. They may say something along the lines of, we'll give you a 60-day notice once we're sure we are ready to close. And usually that's going to come around the time frame of sheetrock or when the cabinets are put in the house. At that point, they are usually pretty sure themselves that they can then hit a target closing date. So if you have a buyer that you're working with today and they say, Jill, I have to be in my house by October. Don't take them to new construction if they're doing a pre-sale. They're not going to be in by October. It's not going to happen. So just know that that is a process. Like I said earlier, if you're building on a basement, the build time right now is between a year and 15 months. If you're building on a slab, you're looking about 8 months to 12 months because they're just so far behind. Right now, they can't get it. They can't get windows. They can't get appliances. And they're starting, and the lumber prices are so high, they're afraid to commit to a price right now. So just be sure of what you're getting your buyer into and prepare your buyer to wait. There is a lot of waiting right now. So just prepare them for that. Deposit refund policy. Typically, there's not one. If you are going to write, if there's a financing contingency, maybe a 30-day financing contingency, you may be able to get your buyer's earnest money back, but read that clause carefully. Some builders, no matter if there's a contingency or not, once you deposit that money with them, it is non-refundable. Please, please, I can't stress enough how important it is to read that refund policy or the contingency that you might be getting into. Because typically they don't like to write you a check back. Financing contingency is usually built into the contract. There may be a clause that says if the buyer can qualify for a 30-year mortgage, but the buyer only wants a 15-year mortgage, and if they're denied the 15-year mortgage, they are still liable to move forward because they can qualify for 30 years. That trips people up a lot. So make sure you understand and your buyer understands that. If they're going for a 15 and they can't qualify for a 15, but they can qualify for a 30, the builder is still going to put them in, tell them they have to move forward because they can qualify for that 30-year mortgage. It's a hard one because the buyers will say, but that's not what I want. And you have to say, but that's what you agreed to. Design. Okay, guys, this is the fun part. This is when you go to the design center and they're picking out all the pretty. Let them have fun. This is the one meeting that you don't go to. Too many Indians in the house makes for a very stressful time. So even if your buyer says, hey, Jill, please come with me, say, you know what? This is a time for you and your husband to go in and design your house and have fun. I'm just going to be another person to give my opinion that's going to confuse you. So I would recommend that you do not go to this appointment. If they feel like they really need somebody to guide them, suggest that they call on a friend or an interior designer to go with them to really help them choose what they want, because a lot of people are very indecisive. They think they know what they want. They get in there and they're going, oh my gosh, it's so overwhelming because there's not just 2 different kinds of tiles to choose from. There's 200 different types of tile to choose from, and they're just really scared of making a mistake. I would still recommend, as their agent, you give them moral support, but you just don't go to that appointment. And the design center typically doesn't want you there. Those ladies are very good at what they do. They have a process. They can get the people in and out, and they're typically designers too. So they can really advise your clients on what looks best based on what the buyer may be looking to do. But it is fun, and let them, encourage the buyers to get excited about this, but also let them know they're going to spend some money, because when they go see all the pretties, they're going to spend some money because it's something they're just going to have. My husband didn't go with me the last time, and it was a very big mistake on his part. When I got home, he goes, what's the damage? And I'm like, okay, are you sitting down? Do you have a glass of wine? What do you need first? It was $83,000 that I spent at the design center. I thought he was going to choke, but I had a good time. So anyway, just get them excited, let them be, have fun, but just don't go to that meeting with them.
Go to all the rest of them.
Yeah, go everywhere else, but not that one. Material substitution. Because we are in such a lag market where we don't know when the tile might be going in the bathroom, it could be a year from now. There's a chance that tile could be discontinued by the time they go to install it. The contract's going to say somewhere in it that there is, if there is a substitution that needs to be made, the builder can make a substitution of equal or greater value. Now, I will say also that most builders are going to say, hey, Jill, your tile was discontinued. We needed you to go to the design center tomorrow and pick out a new tile. If Jill can't go to the design center tomorrow, the builder's going to say, okay, I'm going to go pick out one for you. They're going to try to get it as close to what you picked out as possible, but they're not going to delay their process. So just know if they were to say to you, hey, we need you to go tomorrow, you really do need to go tomorrow to get your new tile. Commission agreement and the brokerage relationship may or may not be in the contract. Read it carefully. If it's not there, you need to add it either via an amendment or ask the builder to write it on their amendment, but it needs to be in there. The commission is, of course, how you're going to get paid, and the brokerage agreement relationship is how we are representing our clients. It needs to be there no matter what the builder says. So ask please. And then if you have to be a little insistent, because, as brokers, we're going to call you back and say, hey, we don't see a brokerage relationship. We don't see a commission agreement. We need to get that back in your contracts.
And one thing, those of us as brokers, we kind of know those builders that leave those out of the contracts for our area. So when you're getting ready to go to new construction, maybe touch base or send your broker a quick email and say, hey, I'm going to Pulte. Do they have brokerage engagement or brokerage representation in their contracts? We usually know because we review these regularly. So do lean into your broker for any help if you're not familiar with that builder in their contract.
Absolutely. And then working together, somewhere in the contract is gonna say that we are all a team. We want to work together. But if you're not a team, if you're being difficult, if your client is being difficult, the builder is going to say in his contract that he reserves the right to ask your buyer not to come on the property, and he or she will also ask you to do the same. I've seen it. I've been part of it. It's not a fun process to be in. If something's going wrong, and guys, there's going to be mistakes. The builder is going to make a mistake on this house. Somewhere along the lines, your client is going to ask for a change or have changed something that did not get relayed back to the builder, and he's going to put something wrong in the house. But just know he's going to make it right. They're not going to close on this contract or on this transaction until everything about the house is exactly what the buyer signed for and agreed to do. So don't get sideways when a mistake does happen. Just say, hey, you know what? The builder's only as good as their contractors. Contractors make a mistake. Maybe they laid the tile on a straight pattern instead of a herringbone pattern, but just know it can happen. They'll take it out. They don't like it, but they'll take it out and they'll fix it. So just know that we should work together every time you go into a new construction sales center. The more easy you are to work with, the better the transaction will be for all parties. And get everything, anytime you make a change, anytime your buyer makes a change, get it in writing, because maybe Jill was on site one day and she ran into Joe, the project manager, and said, hey, Joe, how hard would it be to make this pattern on a brick lay, my tile on a brick lay instead of a straight lay? He's like, really not a big deal, Jill. We have enough tile. Well, he does it, but he didn't relay that back to you or his site agent. And they go out to the house and they go, oh, this tile is wrong and you guys got to make a change. No. I agreed with Jill on site one day that we would make that change. It all needs to be in writing. It needs to be communicated to everybody, every party, so that every party is always on the same page.
So don't let your buyers go without.
Yeah, don't let your buyers go without you, but they're going to, because I'm one of those people. We've built 5 houses. My husband goes every day. So just know that people do go every day. We had a policy at one of the builders I worked for. The buyers had to stop into the sales center and get a hard hat. We wanted, to make sure they were safe. So they had to come get a hard hat before they could go on property. So there's stuff like that you need to know about, so just be informed. Any questions on that, on the contract before I move forward? Okay. So this is the biggest question that you are going to face and your buyers are going to deal with. My client wants to make a change. Can they? Well, that's not a simple answer of yes or no. Back before the recession, the builders made it, they learned a great deal about making changes to the house. In today's world, not so much. They're going to make a change. So they have a process. You may go to write a contract on a house that's in the construction process. Maybe the foundation has been poured and your buyer goes, oh, I really want quartz instead of granite. You guys have picked out granite, but I want quartz. Can I have quartz? And the on-site agent may say no. And you're going, but the house is just at foundation. Why can't I, you're a long way away from putting in those countertops. Chances are the builders already ordered the countertops and they don't want to make that change. They're not going to make that change because making the change upsets their entire world, their internal process. So know about that. If you're buying a house that's in the construction process already, that's not a pre-sale, know what your buyer is or will or is not able to change about the house. It may be a deal breaker for your buyer. If they wanted quartz, if they had their heart set on quartz, but this house was in the process too far along for them to get that quartz. So, and it may sound stupid, and I got called stupid a lot because I would say, you're so stupid. People would say to me, Sherry, you're so stupid. That's just stupid. And I'm like, I get it, but I can't change it. I have to go by the builder's process and what the builder works, his timeline. So know that first before you go into the construction site to put that contract into place. Know what they are willing and willing not to do. For the builder, making changes equals money, and they don't like to waste money anymore. Any questions on that? You like my little frowny face man on my PowerPoint? I thought that was cute. And then one of the last things I want to talk about are the home inspections. Should my client have the home inspected? And my answer to that is 100% absolutely. And you know, people will say, but it's new construction, it should be perfect. It's not. They make mistakes. They make mistakes all the time. So if you're building, if your client is doing from, you know, lot to completion, I would recommend 3 inspections. Your foundation, especially if it's on a basement, you want to make sure that there's no water issues. At framing, mechanical rough-ins. So mechanical rough-ins means that they've pulled the piping for your water, they've pulled your electricity lines, all of that's there, and the framing is in. You just want to make sure that it's all correct, you know, that perhaps your client ordered, you know, additional electrical outlets in their closet. Well, you go there and they're not there. Well, you got to make sure they get in before they put up that sheetrock, because even once the sheetrock goes up, they're not cutting into those walls. So just know that that's a great time for an inspection. And most definitely at the final phase, you know, at the end, because you want to make sure the house is completely running. We had a situation, one of my agents called me yesterday, their clients moved into a house and the hot water is not working. And I said, well, did they not get an inspection? They did not get an inspection. Long story short, the plumbing was not done correctly. They've got to tear out all the walls and redo the plumbing in the house. And guys, that's not fun. So do the inspections. If you get the same inspector to do all 3 phases, they're going to charge you around $1,200, $1,500, but at least you'll have the same inspector doing all phases and they're aware of what's going on with your house. And then post-closing activities, follow up with your clients. At the closing table, don't just walk away. There's so much more after it closes. For the first 2 weeks, I would probably call your clients maybe every other day to say, how's it going? Anything I need to know about? Anything I can help you with? Most of the time, you know, as an agent, I've seen that they walk away and they're like, oh, we're closed and I don't need to help anymore. It's not a resale. It is a new construction. Things are happening. Things are going wrong that you need to know about. The on-site agent, when it closes, the day it closes, they're done. They don't want any more communication with your clients. They are only in the sales center. So your client's communication should be with you and with the warranty people of the community and the builder. The builder at the closing, when they're doing their orientation, should give your buyer their phone number and say, if you have any problems, let me know. And if they're not given the phone number, I would question, well, is there things that you don't want me to come calling on because you know there's going to be bad things? So at the orientation, they should be giving the phone numbers. And then the final thoughts, guys, be engaged. In my experience, I saw a lot of agents, they come to the writing of the contract, they show up at the orientation and they show up at the closing. Late. And we don't see them anytime in between. If they're at the orientation, they're chit-chatting and they're, you know, laughing and giggling or getting their blue tape and taping up the walls. That's not your role. Yeah, that's really not your role. Your role is to be there to support your client. So my advice is, you know, by all means, come to the writing of the contract. There's going to be a pre-construction meeting. You should definitely be there. Inspections, always. Orientation, warranty meeting. And if you, to be the very best you can for your client, videotape it for them. There is so much information that they're given, they don't remember a word of it. They're going to call you and go, where did he say that the water shut off was? And you're going to go, well, I don't know, because you and I were talking. I have no idea where it was. So videotape it for them. That's the best thing you can do. It's so much information and I would highly recommend it. And then I would also, as the buyer's agent, ask for weekly updates. What happened this week? What, you know, what's on the schedule for this week? What's happening next week? What happened last week? So that you can be aware of any delays. You know, if there's weekly updates, you're going to know what's going on and if there's going to be delays, and you can be proactive and take care of that for your clients. So, and ease their mind and their frustration, because it does happen. So, anyway, I think we ran long on time, but, thanks a lot for listening. And I hope that I was helpful and you learned something today.
Yeah, we're really glad that you guys stuck with us in the beginning, all of our technical difficulties. Just be certain you do go to that orientation, because that's where they are learning how to drive that new house. And rather than having the warranty person have to go back out and show them where the fireplace turn off and on is and how to prime that pump, be there, listen, take good notes, video it, and participate in these things, not in a chit chatty way, not like a lot of us sit at the closing table and talk our way through that closing, and the buyers or sellers miss things. Go in and be professional and be helpful. And that way you will help mitigate those issues after warranty. One quick thing I wanted to say at the very end of the package that we sent is residential construction and performance guidelines. This is something you can get online from the National Association of Home Builders. It is about a 60-page booklet, and it is the guidelines. It's the rails which between builders build. So there are some things that are going to be within the performance guidelines during a warranty process. And after the closing, they're going to say, but this isn't right, we want it fixed. That warranty book is going to go back to these residential construction performance guidelines and say, no, 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 no. It's within the guidelines. We do not have to repair it, or we are not going to cover it under warranty. So get yourself a copy of this book. You can get a hard copy if you like from the National Association of Home Builders, or you can just get the electronic version. But familiarize yourself with some of that. It is one of those reads you'll put on the back of the toilet and get to it every 3 or 4 months. But it's a good book to have as a reference guide if you're going to ever represent somebody in new construction. We're going to have some question and answer things, challenges that we've seen after the closing. We have tons of stories about Sherry's own personal house and the HVAC problem, and sweating her way through bedtime. It was funny. Water intrusion is always a thing. It can be landscaping or grading. It can be water lines to the fridge. Sherry, that was a pretty common one that you had.
Oh yeah, you would go in, you would hook up your refrigerator, and your ice doesn't work. And you're going, what's wrong with my ice maker? And I got a faulty refrigerator. Well, it wasn't the refrigerator. They had not connected. The builder had not turned on the water line because they didn't want water everywhere. So when you're at your orientation, make sure that the water line is connected so that you will have ice for your refrigerator. Our HVAC system, I think they really wanted the owner suite to be really conditioned. They put 5 vents in my master bedroom. I was sweating to death every night. I mean, we would turn pretty much the heat off, and still it would be so hot in there. It was like a sauna. They had to come in and put a damper system in our HVAC system to make sure that there was not so much air getting into our bedroom. There's all kind of things that are going to happen, guys, and it does happen. Don't get sideways. It's going to happen, and just work through it. Be calm, be respectful. And, my saying was, this too shall pass.
Yep, it's service after the sale. Just don't forget that it's different versus regular residential resale for new construction. So do, like Sherry said, check in with your buyers every few days after the closing, and know that there's another dance that you have to do, new steps that you have to learn in dealing with the warranty company and the vendors. Know that process. Please, by all means, reach out to myself or Sherry. We'll be happy to help you walk through some of those things. And if you do have challenges, lean into your broker. But you're always welcome to call any of us on the leadership team. We're more than happy to be there for all of you, because that's what we're here to do, is to empower you to achieve your success. And that's sometimes closing new construction. So thank you for your patience today. And we're really happy that you all joined us. We did have a good time.
Thanks so much, guys. It was a pleasure. And feel free to reach out and ask me any questions. Send me an email. I'm always happy to help.